Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, with the Lord of Hated expansion fast approaching for Diablo 4, we were recently invited down to Blizzard HQ to check out the new class, the Warlock, which also included being able to play it for a couple of hours as well. Today, with the official reveal of the class in proper detail, I'm allowed to share my experiences from this as well, and my first impressions to give you guys is that it's a really fun class to actually play with a lot of variety to it. I'll be looking through the skill tree a bit and talking about certain skills, but a lot of the numbers and specific mechanics are subject to change, as this was a pre-release build, possibly months old by the time we even got our hands on it, so it's more about the way that the class feels and looks more than anything else, especially as we were locked to either being level 15 or level 40 characters depending on our choices, which is far from endgame characters or builds, but I messed around with multiple ways of building it at that point and had a lot of fun with the class. First thing I did then was check out the map. We did not get to play in Skovos, the new region in Lord of Hated, but the world map had been updated to show the landmass with Fog of War, so here's the general size of it. Obviously hard to know exactly how much of it is a playable area, but in pure land size it looks similar to Nahantu. Next, I looked at the skill tree and a number of things to note. This is the first proper in-depth view we've been able to get into new skill trees, looking through it properly, as all other classes' new skill trees should be functionally very similar to the Warlocks. And while we have had a few views at these recently that already explain the ways that the trees will work in general, passives have been essentially removed from here, and we can now tell you that we were told a lot of the effects that used to be on passives in the skill tree are now legendary aspects or uniques, just as a lot of things that used to be legendary aspects or uniques are now going to be in the skill tree instead. They are essentially trying to make it so the skill tree is more deciding of your playstyle, and the gear itself just boosts the damage of the playstyle. New level cap in the expansion will be 70 instead of 60, so another 10 skill points will be able to spend, and they made a point of mentioning to us that leveling is not intended to take longer on the whole than it did before the expansion, but they will be redistributing the XP requirement so that early levels take a little bit longer to get through, and later levels go a little bit faster in comparison to how it is now. One other thing that hasn't really been mentioned much outside of maybe in the stream that's happening today is due to the timing I am making this video before the stream happens, but there are planned to be 12 different torment difficulties starting in Lord of Hatred, with them scaling essentially one difficulty for every 10 pit tiers or so worth of difficulty. So the maximum torment tier will be a genuine challenge to exist on properly, unless you are in the best of the best possible builds and are good at the game, and even then it will depend on the balance of the season itself which classes can even do that and stuff. But that's just to give you an idea of the more overarching changes that we were able to talk to the developers about, and once we have more solidified info on what will change properly and what won't before the actual release, we can talk about it in greater detail later on. For now though, let's get on to what you've been waiting for, which is the Warlock itself. Like the other post-launch classes, the Warlock has a lot of customization to be unlocked through its class mechanic, which are soul shards and soul fragments. You get to choose between 4 main soul shards, which are your sort of overarching class mechanic, and it decides one of your summonable demons as well. The soul fragment is the secondary choice that you make beyond this, which changes how the demon functions or how the soul shards mechanics work as well. The shards themselves also sort of represent archetypes for the class, so to go over them quickly, the first one is Legion, which is built heavily on the idea of getting as many demon summons as possible and then using them to cause chaos. Not just having them hit stuff, but making them explode and replacing them, things like that. And the idea that the minions are expendable and replaceable is a big differentiator from the other summoning classes like Necromancer, of course, or also Druid with its companions too. Vanguard is the second archetype. This one is more focused on turning into a demon yourself, metamorphosis, and through this you are the main source of damage in the build, and your minions exist more just to support you. This is sort of like your tank form, your battle mage, and one of the more fun ways to use it is with this skill here. There's just a giant rotating flaming skull that floats around you, bashing stuff for damage and spewing out fire, almost like Druid boulder build, but Warlock themed. The Mastermind archetype is all about shadow magic and channeling the abyss, with control over your pets and minions being the big goal of this one. There are stealth skills within this branch of magic, and one of my favorite things to do personally was an enhancement that makes it so your stealthy teleport type skill also moves all of your minions along with you, including the ultimate skill minion, which is a giant stationary demon, so you can move that around with you, which gets rid of its biggest weakness, the stationary part of it. Then the final archetype is Ritualist, and this is generally seeming to be intended to be your mixed Abyss and Hellfire caster specifically, but you can do things specializing into either one within Ritualist as well. It's just very, very heavily caster focused above everything else. And this one is expected to use the demons that you summon as like a battery for your power. You consume your minions to fuel your own spells rather than relying on them in any actual proper way in combat. For base mechanics of the class then, this is our first dual resource class in Diablo 4. The left side resource, called Wrath, works a lot like the other sort of primary resources that you are used to from the other classes in the game. It refills over time, you can refill it faster with skills, and you spend it on your core non-cooldown abilities. The right side resource also refuels over time, but much slower and has a much smaller pool. This secondary resource is called Dominance, and it's what you use specifically for summoning minions and demons. So your casting and your summoning essentially come from different resource pools that you have to manage at the same time. And I'm sure in endgame you could probably specialize very hard into one or the other even more depending on the build. That stuff said, let's get into the fun, which is how I actually messed with building the thing at level 40 and the various things I was able to try. And while I messed around a bunch, there were 3 things that I found to be particularly effective just from surface level gameplay at least. First, the Hex debuff. This is tied mostly to skills with the Abyss tag, which is your shadowy skills on the Warlock, and it increases crit chance against the target by 15% per stack up to 3 maximum stacks, which is 45% crit chance. Getting 45% crit chance from your skill choices is sort of nuts, and I think there's a good chance this will be a core inclusion in a ton of the best builds for the class, unless the numbers change, and even if they do, it still might be. Another Warlock specific thing to call out that may be strong or may not be as well, entirely depends on the numbers, is called Eviscerate. Warlocks can apply bleed to enemies as their damage over time effect, and Eviscerate is a % chance to trigger. If it does, it will instantly pop a portion of the bleeding life amount and then apply a new bleed as well. And given how this works, if you could increase the chances of it happening or just make it proc frequently enough, I could see this leading to a potential infinite damage scaling setup with a bit of luck in it. So again, it really depends on the numbers that they choose to stick with us here and how much we can augment it through things like Paragon or unique stuff like that. That said, the first build that I played around with was a mix of the Demonology school and Abyss school of magic, or to put it simpler, I wanted to summon a lot of shadowy demons and teleport around the battlefield, controlling them to make them attack my enemies. And while this was probably the least flashy of the things that I'm going to show you today, I know it's sort of crazy to say that while this is happening on screen, it's going to get sillier. And even aside from that, it was still very fun to play. As an actual active minion control archetype, it was cool. To explain what I mean, I took a bunch of either Abyss tagged minions or normal minions that could then be changed to be Abyss minions through skill enhancement choices, but the big sort of thing that held it all together was Nether Step. This is a movement skill, and I felt myself gravitating towards it in every build that I tried because it just felt so useful with all the different things it could do, even as a skill outside of minion synergy. This skill then lets you essentially teleport to your cursor, which gives you stealth and unhindered through the shadow form mechanic, with stealth dropping as you move. But the idea is that you can use this to hide while your minions do the killing. However, I just loved it for the raw movement of teleport, plus a movement speed buff after you teleport. Combine this with the modification to make the movement speed last longer, as well as the modification that makes the movement speed bonus also apply a 100% damage reduction that scales along with it, so both of these together make it so instantly after you cast a teleport, you are literally immune to damage, and you have max move speed, and then it slowly decays until you cast it again. It's a very, very cool loop. And then to cap it off, I took the Recall Shadows enhancement, which allowed me to bring all Abyss tagged minions through the Nether Step with me, so I took an alt that was just a big stationary demon lad. I took some more stationary demons, and then I started to just use this and fly around the battlefield and transport my otherwise slow and lumbering death machines so they could be wherever I wanted them to be, whenever I wanted them to be there. It was very fun. The second build that I played was much more focused on the metamorphosis side of the class, the becoming a demon yourself and then just being the ball of death that you were born to be. And the thing that I found the most fun with this one by far was Infernal Breath. This has a unique interaction with the Vanguard Soul Shard, which is the metamorphosis focused one, and this is where it not only makes the demon head spew out fire when you shoot it like normal, but it also then orbits around the player, hitting enemies and shooting more fire as it goes. And this one was quite fun. It's very clearly a noticeably different archetype than the first one that I played with, and it also had some ways that it could become some fun endgame builds. And I kept messing with this a little bit later on and really sort of made something that works even better around it. But something that I really see people getting into with like endgame builds is the rotating orbiting demon head that shoots fire. I can already tell that will be a lot of people's favorite skill skill in the entire class just because it sort of auto-rotates around you doing damage, and it's sick as hell, and they'll refuse to play any other way, regardless of how strong it is. And again, that's just one of many potential playstyles. The third build that I went for was the one that I messed with the most, and this is the one I spent the most time on and sort of refined because I was enjoying it a lot. It was the pure caster archetype, fire and brimstone, all that jazz, and the big focus was brimstone itself, which is a warlock specific mechanic where some attacks will make an aftershock of hellfire come out of the ground, and you can have that come from multiple attacks, and you can try to boost brimstone specifically as well, which is neat too. I'd say the way that I built this one was maybe a little bit silly, but also just felt really cool to play. The main skill I was using was Hell Fracture, which basically just summons hellfire up from the ground, and if you place them on top of each other, they explode extra times. But then you use that with the Eruption and Enhancement to replace the original skill with small fractures that explode into brimstone when you walk on them, so touch the line explodes. It requires more manual input, but was a big part of my sort of brimstone focus in the build. This also loops into another unique warlock mechanic called Volatility. This effect is part of some hellfire-based skills, and when it triggers, it will make your next hellfire skill cast have increased damage. And there are other ways that you can work around this, like Molten Bomb, which is a basic skill and it has a modifier where it will always knock down enemy if empowered by Volatility, for example. And then a great way of maintaining Volatility is stuff like the Sigil of Chaos skill, which puts a fiery sigil on the ground and gives you Volatility while you stand in it, but you can choose an enhancement that makes the sigil follow you as well. And that same enhancement also makes it explode any lesser demons in its radius, so you can basically fuel the sigil by summoning demons into the circle, which then explodes them and then increases the explosion chance on death of enemies and minions, so it's just a really nice looping sort of option there. But then there was also the ultimate that I used with this one, which I think was my favorite ability that I played with on the class. Not necessarily the most powerful one, I want to be clear about that, but just it is a pure aura farming skill, especially the ways that you can build it further through the enhancements. It's called Apocalypse. Default, it's 66.6 second cooldown, which you create a sigil that explodes after 2 seconds, with the big note on this one being that it does not benefit from cooldown reductions. Your immediate thought might be, okay, well that's sort of terrible, then what's up with that? Well, let's look at how you can enhance it. You can give it a 20% chance to have the big main hit happen twice, which is then guaranteed if you have Volatility applied when casting the skill. To work into the Brimstone focus, Armageddon Ritual Enhancement makes it so you can channel the skill for up to 6.66 seconds to build up to the final explosion longer, during which time Brimstone will be popping up constantly, and every second that you channel it increases the final hit damage up to 666%. And the other modifier over here that makes the final hit deal an additional 50% of its damage, split amongst all the enemies in the area, is also quite interesting, but the other option, Survivor Damage, makes enemies that survive the big hit take 100% bonus damage for 2 seconds. And our other enhancement with Constant Volatility is 100% to hit a second time afterwards, so that's exactly equal damage from the final hit, but it also increases any other damage that you do during those 2 seconds by 100%, so it's a better deal with these options selected. And I'm getting way too lost in the sauce here. I loved building around Apocalypse. It was really cool. It was a joy to use it whenever it was up. That was when I sort of pivoted off of Apocalypse though and back into Metamorphosis, as Metamorphosis is a skill enhancement that adds its own ranks to every other Hellfire skill that you have and makes it cost health when using Hellfire skills, but they are always empowered by the Volatility buff and give you a stacking damage increase buff the more of these that you use. Then the Ritualist Soul Shard has the Scorching Fragment option here, which makes occult Hellfire skills always count as empowered as well as letting Volatility stack up to 3 times for further bonuses, so 2 guaranteed stacks there, but the cost is that you spend more life to use them. This also makes your summoned demon able to heal you and take over life costs while the command skill is active, so when your demon skill is active, you have Crazy Burst, and then you have to be cautious outside of that because of the health costs, but this was super fun. I feel like all it would really take is solving the survivability for this kind of archetype to then just really pop off for the class, though probably with a bit more hex application than I was doing here, as I was just fully in the mindset to burn it all down and having a great time. That's just about it for today then, everyone. Big thanks to the folks over at Blizzard for bringing me and the other creators in to play this early. It was lovely getting to see the people that I know and meet the people that I don't, and I look forward to seeing the more complete picture of Warlock, especially all the more endgame related stuff. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.